All right, we're going to look at the Sterling Net Point Power Rankings as we track those statistics that we feel are most vital to understand. We're going to start here with points for the scoring. This is your leaders in terms of scoring. And as you can see, your top 10 there, Green Bay Packers and Chiefs, 1 and 2 in terms of putting up points. As you can see now, Ben, we have letters beside team names.
Yeah, some clinching going on.
Some clinching is happening. We got 2 clinchers. And you know, it's funny, you look down at 12th at the Steelers, they've locked in a playoff spot, but they didn't clinch nothing. And they've fallen. They were up in those top 3 through most of the season. They're all the way down to 12 now.
It's going to be a while before we see another team go undefeated. All those old guys that are still around from the Miami Dolphins undefeated season are still having their little party and cracking their champagne every time an undefeated team loses, because they remain the only true, fully undefeated team in the Super Bowl era.
Absolutely, you know, and they've got the Cleveland Browns right on their heels at 13 in terms of scoring. They're 1 point differential with the Steelers. I think that's interesting. The Vikings and the Dolphins and the Falcons all in that neighborhood of scoring. And look at this. The Raiders, the Cardinals, and the Bills all scoring more than the Steelers. So, you know, you can see who's putting up the points, but number 1, 2, and 3, those are your heavyweights right there. The Packers, the Chiefs, and the Seahawks. You know, the Titans, you know, I know they put up some points, but I didn't look at them as a high scoring squad yet. What do you think?
The Titans?
Yeah.
Well, usually I don't want to say a ground-based team, but a team that has a heavy rushing attack may not be a real high-scoring team. The Titans, however, are as high as they are, I believe, because they're one of the more balanced offenses as far as running pass is concerned. And Tannehill, again, seems to be having a real good second half of the season. He's only throwing the ball as much as he needs to, because obviously Derrick Henry is the bell cow and he's the main producer of that offense. But anytime he is slowed down even a little bit, or anytime that they may fall behind, the Tannehill's able to bring them back with the passing attack. So they're pretty versatile on offense. I like the way Tennessee's playing right now.
You know, on the Madden front, I actually have been playing, and I don't normally play with other teams. I normally play with the Niners, but I decided to do that because we have some exciting quarterbacks, in this league, and I was like, I just wanted to see what it's like to play with some of these, and I just finished playing with the Titans, and I play against the Niners, so I have a constant in my evaluation. So every team goes against the Niners. And let me just mention off to the side, Madden has Nick Mullins rated way too high. Nick Mullins is doing some damage in the game.
Mullins.
Like, nah. I called him Nick the Quick early on, but right now, like we both said, he's my Colt McCoy. and he's your Nick Mullins.
You know what that made me think? Let me just say this really fast. There's a lot of times when you have a season where you have a lot of injuries at particular positions. And when it happens at the quarterback position, teams find out that they need to reevaluate their backup quarterback situation. We had the discussion about emergency quarterbacks and all that before, right? But with COVID on top of injuries, there's going to be a whole bunch of backup quarterback turnover next year. Trust me. Cats are finding out, we thought this guy was going to be all right as our backup, but we got to do better.
Great point that you're bringing up about what will probably happen next year. Last week we talked about the article that's on our Facebook page where they list all of the emergency quarterbacks for the NFL because, again, between COVID, soft tissue injuries, which, again, early in the season, we said injuries are going to be the key thing that's going to determine a lot of what goes on. I think it had a lot to do with that Eagles game we'll talk about. But long story short, but you took it to next season, and that's an interesting point. My point early on was when you're looking at these college coaches that we're calling geniuses, and then you look at how ineffective their backup quarterbacks is, it takes a little, if they were an A+ genius, I'm giving them an A-. They barely getting up to a B because some of these backup quarterbacks is like, dude, you didn't know? He's been practicing with you all this time and you thought he could start and win you some games in this league? So I'll lastly state that my premise all along has been that that weighting of the payout is way too high on the starter and needs to be balanced up with the backup, because you guys have to see that you need a competent backup, because they're talking about stretching out the season again, so that's going to add to it in addition, to make sure that you get through a full season successfully on a team basis. All right, so next up, after points 4, we have points against. That's your defensive scoring rankings from 1 to 32. As you can see, in last place are your Dallas Cowboys. They've given up a total of 400 points. And in your first place, you have your Pittsburgh Steelers, who have only given up 237 points. So that's your spread between worst to first. Your Packers are in 17th place there. They've clinched the division, but their defense, still leaves a little something to be desired. Your Miami Dolphins are your surprise number 2, coming out ahead of the Rams and the Saints and the Ravens. So we've been on Miami for a while now. I think that's just an interesting scenario. And moving up into the top 10, those Washington Redskins. I mean, this is amazing. Washington has given up less points than the Chiefs, the Bears, and those Giants are no slouches, coming in at number 10 there, ahead of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the Colts, and the Cardinals, and the Buffalo Bills. So those are
the highly touted Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Indianapolis Colts, and Buffalo Bills. Yes. The Giants defense is for real. I'm not calling them a great defense. I'm not saying they're superior even to these other teams. All I'm saying is they're playing really, really well right now. They've done a lot better with their drafting in the last couple of years. They found the defense to be a problem. They've worked on it, and it shows. And they're moving up.
Well, actually, they've been close to that 10 and 11 ranking through a large part of the season.
Right. Well,
it's just pretty consistent. If anybody has moved up, it's probably Washington.
No, Washington has really moved up. But I just happen to remember, because the Giants are my team, that they were 11 last week.
Right.
And now
they're
10. So, but when I say move up, I don't mean specifically moving up on our rankings, but moving up as far as the way they're playing and the fact that they're playing better because they've been playing together for the entire season. So as they've gone through the season, they've become a better unit, a better defensive unit overall. And I can appreciate that. But, they still got their hands full with their offense, and they got work to do in the offseason, but enough of that,
Well, defense is aided by the next stat that we want to take a quick look at, and that is turnover differential. There's Todd, our favorite, TOD, turnover differential. And in first place with plus 17 is your Pittsburgh Steelers. And second place, your Miami Dolphins. And so you see there's a correlation there between turnover differential and defense.
Yeah, the list almost kind of looks the same. Like the teams that turn the ball over are going to be your better defenses, because when you turn the ball over, you get the other offense off the field.
Yeah. Well, let's make sure that we say it in completion. The teams that take the ball more than they give it up, because that's really
Exactly.
what the differential is, and having to understand that everybody gives up the ball a little bit here or there. Right now, they're looking kind of out the side of their eye at the Kansas City Chiefs. I'm hearing some discussion about Pat Mahomes getting a little lax, a little carried away with himself there. And their
Aberration.
ability to come back, and just do you in like that. But some of those turnovers could come to bite them as as you get closer to the playoffs.
I would say that game is an aberration until I see him have another game like that. And there's two schools of thought on their performance. One is they're getting lax and they're getting bored because they're winning the way that they're winning, and they seem to be able to do whatever they want to win games. And the other school of thought is that they're showing some chinks in their armor, and teams are starting to pick them out. And pretty soon there's going to be a blueprint to beat the Chiefs. I'm kind of leaning toward the. I mean, I don't think they're bored. I hate to use that word, but I feel like they feel that they can turn it on when they want to. What they need to be careful of is going into a game with that mindset. Like, in the back of your mind, you can, but you don't want to go into a game with that mindset. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I understand it's confidence without being arrogant about it.
yeah, right, right,
And
right.
where you go into sloppiness, and so that's the question. I mean, let's face it, Pat Mahomes is awesome. We all think he's awesome, and super mature for his age. So you expect that they'll come out of that. But let's see. I mean, let's face it, turnover differential, they are eighth. They are not first. The Pittsburgh Steelers are still first. Now their problem is offense. The Miami Dolphins. Again, we're just always surprised that they've made these moves. Their coach Flores has to be commended. And then the Rams, again, a solid team. They're just a solid team, balanced on both sides. And that's pretty much it for them. So, we shall see. Now the Saints, I'm a little surprised that they're as high as they are in the turnover differential, because their quarterback, his name's escaping me. What's his name?
Taysom Hill.
Taysom Hill. I want to call him Ty for some reason. Taysom Hill has been somewhat of a turnover machine. He's done some good things, but then he does have a propensity to turn the ball over. So I don't know if that has pushed them up or down, but I just want to keep an eye on that. They have clinched a spot in the playoffs. So that, at least based on getting into the playoffs, they don't have to try to rush Drew Brees back. From what I'm hearing, he's not exactly feeling like a spring chicken anymore. He's really still somewhat struggling. Even if they bring him back, he's not going to be 100%. So there's a real question as far as whether they're going to do that or not. Turnover differential. Anything else on that?
No, I'm good with that. Let's move on.
All right. Next up are the numbers that we pay the most attention to. And again, net points, differential, win margin. All of those are synonymous, and these are numbers that go from positive to negative. On your left-hand side, for the most part, are all your positive numbers. And as I always say, at any one time and during a season, half the team is in the negative. You can see the teams that are very negative. Those are the teams that'll be in that lottery for that number one draft. No, there's no lottery. They'll be vying for the number one draft pick. This isn't basketball, right? Kansas City Chiefs, first place. Pittsburgh Steelers, second place. That's flipped from a couple weeks ago. Saints still hanging on to third place, so we got to give Taysom his due on that. Those are all the three-digit net point leaders. You drop down to 2 digits with your Ravens, Packers, Dolphins, and Rams, Buccaneers, Colts, and Seahawks. So that's your top 10 there. Um, and you see that range from 69, from plus 69 points to plus 122. So maybe the Chiefs have a legitimate reason to feel that way, whether it's healthy or not. Let's face it, they've been winning by the largest margins across the board.
Oh yeah, sure. I mean, this is the problem. It's funny, and you and I have both coached on different levels, and I'm coaching right now flag football, so I'm dealing with athletes that are the same age as a lot of these NFL athletes, guys in their early 20s up into their mid 30s, and there comes challenges with that because these guys have been around football. They've played in school, they've played little league, they played high school, they played college, and now they're playing for recreation, but they still consider themselves football players and knowing the game. So when you have a good team that's full of talent and you're winning games, you would think it's all good. But in fact, it can actually be a little problem for you when guys' heads get a little big or guys start to come into games without the proper preparation because they feel like we're just better than everybody else and we're going to win. And you can say, well, that wouldn't happen to the Chiefs. These guys are professionals. They're making a lot of money. They're regular 20-year-old dudes. Okay. So that danger remains. And that's part of the coach's job to make sure that those kind of things don't creep into their heads too much, where it starts to affect the game plan and how they perform on Sunday.
One of the things that I wanted to make sure that I mentioned, well, first of all, good point in terms of you having that current experience with the younger guys, and just being able to relate to that. It is what it is. If you're 20 years old, you're 20 years old. Can't expect them necessarily to think like a 43-year-old, or anything like that. So that's a good point. We'll keep an eye on that with the Chiefs. The other thing I wanted to just kind of keep an eye on again are some of the teams that have that big differential between their defense and their offense, because I think that's going to add some intrigue when it comes to the matchups as we get into the last couple games and specifically into the playoffs. So when I look at offenses, for example, let's see if we can back this up a little bit. And you look at your offense, Green Bay Packers, right?
You bring them up every week. You realize that, right?
Well, as you know, they've actually shrunk the differential a little bit.
Exactly, and that's the point I was about to make. You've been bringing them up, and there was a time when there was a gigantic difference between their offense and their defense, or between their points for and their points against, and they've consistently been getting better and better, closing the gap. That is.
So here they're 17th defensively, and offensively they're first.
Right.
Okay, the Kansas City Chiefs, they're within their top 16 on both. Seattle Seahawks, so you see that they're third offensively. The Seattle Seahawks are 18th defensively. Now they've actually shrunk that differential also.
Yes, they have.
Their defense has moved somewhat in the right direction. One of the surprises here, however, is the Tennessee Titans. Now, I'm at turnover differential. Let's go back to points for. Where's your Titans at? They're number 4. All right, offensively, and they're 21st defensively. That's kind of a surprise. When I think Titans, I think defense, and they're missing out a little bit there. So I'm kind of looking at the teams that are like in the top 10, top 6, 15 or so. offensively, and then not so on the defensive side. Let's go back here. Vikings are 14th offensively. Vikings are 24th defensively. So they're in the top half scoring, but they're in the bottom half in terms of their defense. The Cleveland Browns, another team, and I guess after that last game, they gave up a ton of points. But you've got your Cleveland Browns at 13 offensively, coming in at 27th now on the defensive side of the ball. Lastly, you have a few teams who are in the lower half offensively, but in the top half defensively. Let's see if I can get it right here. So I'm looking at Washington, the Bears, and the Patriots, and the Giants offensively. And then when you go defensively, top half, Patriots are 7th, Washington's 6th. The Giants, we already said, were what? What did the Giants say here? 10th. So those are teams, again, when you're looking for balance, they're a little out of balance. They've either got really good offenses in the top half or really bad defenses, or defenses that need a lot of improvement because they're in the lower half of the league in terms of their points. And then you got the flip side where you got teams that are in the lower half offensively, but the top half defensively. So I just wanted to point that out. Anything on that?
Let me ask you something real quick, and you got to give me a fast answer off the top of your head. What would you rather have? Top-ranked offense, lower-ranked defense, or top-ranked defense, lower-ranked offense?
Top-ranked defense.
Would you?
Yeah.
Now, I'm going to challenge you, and we don't have to do it now, to go back and look at some of those teams that you mentioned that had the high offense, like the Packers, and the lower ranked defense, and teams that you mentioned that had the higher ranked defense and lower ranked offense, and see if you don't change your thinking a little bit when it comes to specific teams.
When it comes to specific teams.
Yes.
All right. I mean, always give them thought, but philosophically,
I understand what you're saying.
I am that guy. Defense wins championships.
I expected you to say that.
Okay. You know me.
Yes, I do.
Homie. All right. That wraps up the Sterling Net Point Power rankings. Next portion, Ben and Barry on football, will be looking at the Bias Plus reports. Stick with us.